G'day everyone, my name's Will and welcome to another review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Australian Railway Models 2021 release of the C38 class streamline locomotive 3803. So we're going to take a look at what you get in the box, a brief history of the locomotive, some running shots around the Australian Model Railway Association layout in Melbourne, and I guess what I think of it. So before we get into this video, don't forget to be subscribed so you can keep up to date with all the videos that I have coming out in the future. So let's get into it. So this is the second release from Australian Railway Models. Their first release was another C38, which was 3806 in an unstreamlined body. It was extremely popular and sold out very quickly. So naturally, when they released this one, I went and got one. So let's take a look at the packaging. So I've already taken the locomotive out of here, but what you've got with the box, it is a bit basic, a bit how you going, but that's all right. It doesn't have to be anything too flash. Clear front, you can see the locomotive and the tender. On the end, it'll tell you that you've got 3803, which is a C38. And then on the back, you've got a brief history plus some locomotive features and a little schematic diagram of the locomotive. As well as that, in the box you've got this, which is an instruction manual. Just go through basically a brief overview of the locomotive, just general maintenance. It's also got a diagram on the inside for body removal, pony truck removal, tender removal, things like that. Possibly stuff that you'll never have to really worry about. So I guess that's pretty handy. Now, before we get into the specs of this locomotive and taking it for a test run, let's have a quick and a very brief look at the prototype history of the C38 class locomotive. Built from 1943 to 1949 by Clyde Engineering Granville, as well as Cardiff and the Everleigh Railway Workshops in New South Wales, the 462 Pacific C38 class locomotives were commissioned by the New South Wales Government Railways to eliminate the expense and complications of double-heading express passenger and mail trains on the demanding line between Sydney and Albury. Designed and built in Australia, they boasted an impressive 20 tonnes and up to 2,500 horsepower. Out of the 30 built, 5 were built with streamlining, like the model I've picked up. 3803 was the third C38 built and went into service in 1943, but was withdrawn in February 1968. Today, there are 4 locomotives left in varying states of preservation at the Thelmere and Dorrigo museums. You can still see an example of the streamlined 38 class locomotive in 3801, possibly Australia's most famous steam locomotive. And if you want to see more of that, I did make a video when it came down to the Victorian-New South Wales border in 2021. Right, so that's a very brief history of the locomotives. Now let's take a look at this model's features. The model is DCC ready and would require an 8-pin decoder for DCC running. The locomotive has detached cabin interior, including a floating floor plate. It has separately applied body parts and details, accurately reproduced motion mechanisms, realistic mechanical mechanisms, authentic knuckle-style couplers, although they're not KDs and they are only on the tender. Dual position drawbar for close tender coupling, which goes together very easily as there's no pickups in the tender. Now here's the real kicker for a ready to run steam engine, its price. Its recommended retail price is $299 and the lowest I've seen it going for is $285. Now these seem to be available at most model railway and hobby stores and I got mine at Train World in Melbourne. Now personally I think it looks good. From the 3-foot rule it looks like a C38. It does have some separately fitted parts and some molded parts that look fine and some that aren't exactly fine scale. Now, I could say that the generator looks a little bit big. I don't quite understand why the locomotive doesn't have a working headlight. Something that some modelers should be aware of, especially if you have tight curves, is that the tender has fixed bogies. And it does have my biggest pet peeve in ready-to-run steam locomotives, plastic coal. Now, I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. So let's take a look at it running around the Australian Model Railway Association layout in Melbourne with a bit of a train behind it. Now the AMRA layout does have some 130 grades, or the equivalent of, And this loco, unmodified aside from putting the decoder in, quite easily pulled around these very well weighted, white metal bodied New South Wales Railways cars to recreate the Southern Tablelands Express. And I must say a huge thank you to Howard, Wayne and Alan Armstrong for the loan of these cars for this review. Alright, so there's some running shots of it going around the AMRA layout in Melbourne. Now, for $299, this loco is, well, bang for your buck. I can't fault it for its price point. I can nitpick at it like I did just a second ago and say things about, some things are a little oversized and, some things aren't super accurate. But for $299, this thing pulled everything around the layout absolutely sweet. And I really didn't have anything that I can say about it in terms of performance that's bad. Now, I guess one thing, there is no lights in this, there's no headlight, and I would have thought that would have been something that was quite easy to have just included with the model, but not to be. Now, you could install one yourself, although something that was pointed out to me, and being a Victorian modeler, it's something I guess I didn't know about. A lot of New South Wales Railways steam locomotives, especially when the C38s were in charge, they didn't run with lights on. They don't, unlike in Victoria, everything has a headlight on almost all the time, whereas New South Wales didn't. So I guess in a way, it's a prototype, but that is something you can fix. Now I installed a DCC decoder in this. It is 8-pin. It honestly, taking the body apart really, really easily, slots in, the decoder sits up behind the chimney, under where the smoke comes out. And that was really, really simple. And I did fix the coal issue by just doing what I normally do, which is put some Mod Podge over it, glue some coal to it. Looks a lot better, and it's a really, really easy modification for steam locos that come with those gross coal bunkers or coal loads. Really easy fix though. Now, I have gone and got some other bits and pieces for this. I got this. This is the Control P bogie tender. So, like I said, the tender bogies on this they're fixed. And Control P, who do 3D printed parts from trains, whether it's couplers, the Schaffenberg couplers for the Sprinters and Explorers to entire railway cars, do a replacement bogie, so you get swiveling bogies. Now, I don't really know if it's a necessity for people whose layouts have got nice big curves. You're probably not going to notice them swiveling. However, I think the advantage to them is the fact that it comes with a real KD. So instead of the not very good at all coupler that it does come with, which is a knuckle style coupler, you can replace that whole kit with a proper KD. And I think for the price, it's a bit of fun and just pop it on. So the Control P bogie, pretty easy. It comes with everything you need. You just have to paint it. I painted mine with some SMS paints. Very, very straightforward. So Australian railway models, like I said earlier, have already done one of these runs. Now, they have said that they're going to be doing another one, an unstreamlined, another black locomotive 3820. And I guess at its price point of $300, would I buy another one? Absolutely. That is bang for your buck. What I like about it is that is not a daunting price. For $300, it pulls better than some locos that I own that are double that price, and it looks fine. For modelers starting out and they really want a steam locomotive and an Australian steam locomotive, I think for $300, spot on. Now you can even get some of those Lima Hornby re-released New South Wales Railways passenger cars if you want to plonk something behind it that looks reasonably prototypical. And you've got something that's good to go. I kind of like that there are already other parts available for it if you want to start getting into, kit building and modifying things without really breaking the bank or worried that you might damage a really expensive model. The Control P bogies, that's something I threw together in about an hour. And that's great. That'll get people into this hobby. And I think that's something that some of the bigger manufacturers possibly need to take note of, that we used to have like a basics line for a lot of manufacturers, like Lifelike, Powerline had one, Austrains had one, where you had a locomotive for a reasonable amount of money, might not have been super accurate, but it got people into the hobby and not being put off by its price point at say $500, $600, $700, $800 and upwards for a model. Anyway, I digress. Long and the short of it is, for $300, bang on. If you model New South Wales or you just want to model Australian and you want to get into it, I'd buy another one of those any day of the week. So I'd just like to say a big thank you to the Australian Model Railway Association for letting me shoot in the club rooms for this video, as well as the Armstrongs for lending me the rolling stock. And yeah, if you really like this video and you want to see me make another one when the next one comes out, 3820, I did notice that DCC Sound do a sound kit, I guess, for that model or for this model. I'm not going to do it to this one, but if you really, really like this review and want to see me do it again with a sound modified version, let me know in the comments below. Also, if you picked up one of these, you're planning to pick one up, or just have any feedback about this video, please leave it in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to be subscribed if you're not already, so you can keep up to date with all the videos that I've got coming out in the future. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you really, really soon. Hooroo.